all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos, the original 4-H's, to review films either current or classic. And this week we're coming at you with something that's a little bit classic and a whole lot current. That would be the Hellraiser remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, that's currently streaming on Hulu. We're definitely jazzed to talk about this film. Hope you are too. So sit down, strap in, and get ready for some Hellraiser goodness. But before we can get to that, let me introduce you to my wonderful co-hosts. Jim Pugliafico is with us in the virtual studio. Hey, sweetheart, how's it going?
It's going okay. It's kind of a crazy week, but it's always good to take this break at this time of the week and talk about movies with you guys. So, and we have a new one to talk about this week, which will be interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the discussion with you guys tonight and a nice relaxing time.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead.
Unless I solve this puzzle.
There you go. All right. We've also got William Lindis here with us. Welcome, Will. How are you?
Hey, doing great, guys. Really excited about tonight. We have such sights to show you as our listeners going live right now. And in honor of Disney now technically owning the Hellraiser property, I figure that my puzzle box.
Oh my god!
That's a Jedi holocron.
What? Nice. It's a Jedi holocron? I don't know.
Is it?
Yes.
Jedi holocron.
I'm a Star Wars nerd. I know these things.
Like what?
For those of
exactly
you who are
like the thing.
For those of you who are listening rather than watching the video, Will is demonstrating some puzzle bot goodness with his Jedi holocron. All it's going to do is have Yoda appear and teach you how to move things with the Force. It's not going to prick you and summon Cenobites. Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh, sorry.
Oh no. Oh no, a blade popped out. I'm fucked.
Oh goodness. Well, we've got a lot to talk about with the film tonight. Definitely looking forward to getting into that conversation. Real quick though, just wanted to say that we recently learned of the passing of Doug Langway, who wrote and directed the Bear City films, among other projects. Doug has been on the show multiple times in the past. We got to hang out with Doug for a week in P-Town, got to know him very well, and have loved running into him at events, over the years, having him on the show to talk about what's coming up for him next. And definitely really, really just shocked and sad to hear that he passed away. So wanted to express our love to his friends, his family, everyone right now who is hurting. He was a hell of a guy, and definitely want to go back and rewatch the Bear City films now as a way of honoring Doug.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you realize at times like this just how close-knit and small the Bear community is, because there are countless people who, through the films or through events or just through social circles, who knew Doug very well. And who are absolutely devastated, the three of us included. Doug first appeared on Movie Bears podcast back in January of 2013, where he was here for Bear City 2, The Proposal.
Yeah.
It was episode 6. Episode 6. So when we say that Doug's been with us since the beginning, Doug's been with us since the beginning. So this is, this sucks. It's never fun to give news like this, but we also have his rich body of work to kind of help remember what he's given to the Bear community.
Right, and I'll always remember Doug as the guy that he was. Like he was like the most gregarious, funny, like high energy dude that you'd ever meet, whether it be on this show or in person at a bar or at a party. I never was on set during one of his movies, but I can imagine what that was like. Just an awesome energy that Doug had and has, left some of that on us. And so, we love him for that. I even went today and looked up like his first feature film and found copies of it on Amazon and bought one.
Nice.
So we have it coming. It's called Raising Heroes.
Nice.
It's a gay caper movie. Like these two guys are adopting a kid, and they witness a crime, and so like the mob is after them. So I can't wait to see the craziness in this one. But it sounds
Oh
great.
man. Doug was such a creative, wonderful soul, and he put so much into his films. I haven't seen that one yet, Jim, so I'm
I haven't either.
definitely jazzed to watch that with you, and we'll pour a drink and raise it to Doug while we watch, I think.
Mhm.
So
Cool.
all right. Well, Doug, we love you. We miss you. Hope we see you again someday. Guys, how do you feel about jumping into our movie discussion?
Whew. Yeah, let's do it.
Hellraiser.
Let's raise some hell.
Let's raise.
Yeah,
some hell.
I saw Hemi's comment in the chat. He says, "Yo, you guys gonna raise some hell tonight?" I think we are. I think we are.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, for anyone who's not familiar with our show, we talk about a movie for about 10 minutes, spoiler free, and then we kind of open the lid on the can of spoilers and let them all out, kind of like letting evil out of a box. So all that to say, if you haven't seen the new Hellraiser yet, and you're like, not sure if I want to see it, but I'm kind of curious what other people think, we're going to give you our spoiler-free thoughts for the first 10 minutes or so, and then we'll give you plenty of warning when it's time to maybe bow out and preserve your, virginal innocence if you want to preserve that. That is entirely up to you. But all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of Hellraiser. All right. So, Jim, do us a favor if you don't mind. Set this up for us. What the hell is Hellraiser? And what were your initial thoughts? Spoiler free, of course.
Yeah, Hellraiser is not the new product by Remington or Gillette. It's this is an actual movie. This is this is a take on Clive Barker's 1987 horror classic, where a young woman in this one, a young woman struggling with addiction comes into possession of an ancient puzzle box, unaware that its purpose is to summon the Cenobites. So I went into this movie I won't say totally cold, but pretty cold to tepid, because I never saw the original. Of course, I've seen images of the Pinhead Cenobite, I guess, lead Cenobite, head Cenobite, around everywhere, right? And I always see it and say, "Oh, that's kind of awesome and cool looking," but I have no idea what it means. I assume it's some kind of horror antagonist or something, and I just knew the name Pinhead. And so I went into this movie. We tried to watch a recap, like the original movie in 4 minutes kind of thing, to kind of bring me up to speed, and that was almost practically useless. But yeah, so as this one unfolded, it was weird for me because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know. I knew the puzzle box had something to do with summoning evil, but I didn't exactly know the mechanics of how everything worked and why things were happening. So the movie kind of played on me as like a first time watch. So so it was kind of weird. And I think the movie maybe took for granted that a lot of the people watching it may know the first movie, because it was pretty cryptic as far as what was going on in the movie almost all the way through. Until about halfway through, when it became apparent, why certain things were happening and what the chain of events were. But anyway, yeah, I thought this movie was okay. It was just okay for me. It didn't really frighten me. I thought some of the acting was or characterizations were okay, but it didn't bowl me over. So this was, I would say, for horror film fans who may be fans of the first movie, I'd say this is probably a must watch. But in terms of, like, if you're looking for something super scary to watch, like on a Friday night, I don't know if this would fit the bill. At least for me, it didn't. So I would say, yeah, if you're a horror movie fan, I would say I would recommend it. Recommend seeing it because I think you would probably see it based on the strength of the original film anyway. But yeah, going in, I just don't think this one just brought it over the scary enough line for me. But I'm willing to hear what you guys, who are probably fans of the first movie, or not fans, but at least familiar with the first movie, thought of this one.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for giving us that great setup and kind of letting us know what you initially think about the film. I'm sure we'll dive a little deeper as our discussion goes on. Will, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, of course, because I can't turn to you on the couch and say, "What did you think after watching the movie?" Because you're 2,000 miles away,
Mm.
and I try to avoid reading your thoughts on social media so that I can be pleasantly surprised. So I have no idea where you come down on this film yet. Well, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, so this new Hellraiser film, I think the interesting thing about this one, and Jim, this may help a little bit. It definitely borrows from the, the puzzle box and the Cenobites and the that of everything, but the actual story of this is unique to this story in that this is not, the same story of like sadomasochist Frank from the 1987 version, and all the stuff that happens there. I think this is a good film. I think this is a good film. I think this is a worthy addition to Hellraiser franchise, which I feel started strong, and I think there were, gosh, I think six, maybe more. And definitely, as with any franchise, you definitely get diminishing returns the further and further you go into it, right? You have to explore the lore. You have to get to the point where your villains, you have to give them redemption arcs to keep things interesting. Just all sorts of shit like that happens in these horror franchises. This one strips all of that out and tells a new story with characters who are going through the same basic push of what happened in the stories, which is you end up with this puzzle box that if you unlock it, you are invited to this world of excruciating pain and excruciating pleasure, to the point where the sensations overlap to the point that it's horrific and wonderful and all of these different things within the confines of the story. What I wish there was more of is I think the movie leaned more on the horror side of what was going and less on the sexuality part. Not that I necessarily needed it to be dripping in just constant sexuality, but these
Bodily fluids.
Well, the original story was built off of Clive Barker's experiences in the 70s with like the S&M scene, right? And so he really wanted to play off of that pain for pleasure, pleasure for pain type thing and take it to its extremes. And I think we lose a little bit of that here. What I do like very, very much here is the priest, the Pinhead character, has been cast as Jamie Clayton, who we would remember from Sense8. She played Nomi in Sense8. And I think absolutely fantastic here is the priest. The Clive Barker stories played the priest as more androgynous than we saw with the original Doug Bradley, which nothing against Doug Bradley presentation. He's a classic for a reason. But I think this definitely pulls things back a little bit closer to Barker's vision and also gives us something new that works today. I don't know. I liked it. I think there are some changes to the lore. Some people who are diehards are going to get pissed off by that. Some people are going to be enthralled by it. I think this is a good jumping off point for someone to, if you don't start with the 87 film, I think you can come into this one cold and sort of skip some of the other stuff because this tells its own story by itself. I liked it. I would recommend it to both people wanting to scratch the surface and people who are fans of the franchise. But again, at the same time, there are a couple of things that left me a little bit wanting. But still, thumbs up. I recommend.
All right, Will, thank you so much for your thoughts as well. Definitely cool to hear where you come down. I think I'm kind of in the middle of you two guys, and that's a perfectly fine place for me to be. I'm not upset by that at all. I appreciated this movie, I think. I will say I miss some of the sexuality bits from the original film. You had these Cenobites in leather, and they were looking hot while at the same time, also being very grotesque. And it was just this really fascinating blend of pleasure and pain. I feel like this movie really steps away from that to a large degree. We can definitely talk more about it in spoilers. There are certain elements of it that still hang around, and I was wanting to like pull on those threads and like just give me more, but we didn't really get that. But that said, I think this is a perfectly fine approach to a Hellraiser movie for 2022. Jamie Clayton was fantastic as the Hell Priest. Just phenomenal performance there. The voice that was used for that character gave me chills, and that's a good thing, when you're making a horror film. I will say that I was less enthralled with Odessa Azion as Riley, and she's our main character in this film. She is the protagonist that everything revolves around. She gets sucked into the puzzle box, you know, game, whatever you want to call it, and the friends and the people that are around her kind of get pulled into what's going on, and things kind of play out from there. I just don't think she was that strong. A lot of people really loved her performance, so I'm not saying it's a bad performance. Maybe it just didn't resonate as well for me. But I thought some of the time she's like manically screaming or like running across the screen or like it was just, I don't know. It was really over the top and overdone for me, and kind of had me rolling my eyes at certain points. That said, that's probably a really hard role to play, and it's probably a complicated thing to try and pull off. So, again, I'm not saying it's a bad performance. It maybe just didn't trip my triggers personally. The rest of the cast, her brother and her friends, um, pretty unmemorable, I think, which is unfortunate. It's one of those things where even with the original film, you have these bit characters coming in that just serve a purpose for a certain amount of time. You don't get super attached to them. And I guess that's kind of the thing here. They tried to give some backstory with her brother and his living situation and the friends that were involved, but I don't know, I didn't really care about anybody in that friend group, and I think that makes it hard for me, at least, to sort of connect and engage. So
Right.
I did mildly care about what happened to the Riley character, and certainly as we get into spoilers, we'll talk about the journey she went on. But yeah, a little bit of a swing and a miss with the cast for me, but very cool to see the updated Cenobites and their designs.
Yeah.
We got some really fucking cool shit with these Cenobite characters, and every time they were on screen, I was just sort of transfixed. And so the Cenobites are the bread and butter of the Hellraiser franchise. If you don't do those well, what are you doing with your franchise? And I think this movie does a good job of working with them and making them formidable and scary. So for me, I know you guys are itching to talk. I can see it on the screen. Let me just get this out. This is a recommend if you are a fan of horror movies. If you're a fan of the original Hellraiser films, definitely give this a chance. I know there were like 7 of the original movies. You might be like, fuck, really? Another Hellraiser movie? But I think this is restarting the franchise on a good footing, and it's worth checking out. So there you go.
Yeah, I'd really like to see them run this franchise over, some characters who are in situations that I kind of cared about. I didn't. I think that was part of the issue with me. I thought that the Cenobites, the design of the Cenobites was cool. The mechanism. I don't mean the physical mechanism, but I meant like the plot machinations about the puzzle and how it, the attachment to that world and all that stuff. I thought that was cool. I'd really like to see that played out against some characters that I had a little bit more investment in. I just never connected with any of the characters, and I'm not putting that on the actors at all, because I'm not sure it was, it's
Yeah.
probably not their fault. I think just the way, I think the setup of the story and the motivations of the characters I thought was weak. And I think I think that kind of watered it down for me.
This is an interesting weekend for Odessa Azian, who played Riley, right? Because she is starring in 2 films that came out this year that both released this weekend. And both on streaming, both horror movies too. She's also the lead in The Inhabitant, which I think is on like Amazon Prime, So interesting. It's not doing as well in the reviews, I'll say that. So, and I haven't seen it yet. I don't know. So, but it's still just super interesting to me. Like when you see the same person as the lead in 2 movies that come out the same weekend, it's like, which Odessa movie am I going to watch? Yeah, I don't know. I really like the Cenobite design here, Brad, in a way that kind of echoes what you were saying. Yes, I would have liked to have seen some of the like the black leather stuff too, because I think that worked very well with it. But I think the direction that they went here, if you're going to, I think you can still put that like S&M sensibility while still playing into the more horrific body modification that these explorers of sensation, these Cenobites do. One thing I really liked is they did a couple of what I think were probably good updates. The original group of Cenobites, they had sort of fan names that sort of like
the Chatterer.
Through. The Chatterer's still around, and
my favorite.
Pinhead. It was apparently Clive Barker hates that the priest was called Pinhead. So that's always interesting piece of lore, like when something just gets away from you. But there was one that was called the Female, and it was just the female Cenobite, kind of Smurfette syndrome. And I get it. I get why you do that. But at the same time, I like that was that remodeled that one into a character that they now call the Gasp. Same design with sort of like the neck open and all of that stuff, but just sort of like there's more to her than just, she's the girl one. Yes. And Ryan Eaton says chat, the 4th one was Butterball with the stomach sliced open and the little black goggles melted onto his face. It's cool shit. I think the designs here are really neat. One of the things I really enjoyed so much is there are more Cenobites than you actually get on screen at any given time. So you get like, the main ones with personality that are doing stuff, but there's a couple of times where there's just a couple of other sort of like grotesque standing sort of in the background of things. And it's interesting just sort of going like, there's more to this world. I'd be interested in seeing more of it. So I would like to see more from this franchise. I think there's something that you could definitely do here with the revamp. I do agree, like the main character's motivations were a little limp, and some of the motivations for some of her character faults I've seen play out better in other horror movies. I think the Evil Dead remake did that a lot better. So I just feel like this feels like something where you get the horror first, and then you sort of just, well, what are they going to kill? Let's put some guys in here. That's sort of what it feels like in some places.
Well, fellas, I think we're getting to that point where there's all these things we want to talk about, but they're behind the spoiler wall. So maybe it's time to go ahead and just climb over that wall if you guys are on board and get those spoilers going. Jim, I see you nodding your head. Will, how about you? Are you good to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. All right. We are going to go ahead and spoil the crap out of Hellraiser 2022. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on Hulu right now. Feel free to stream. Come on back. Finish this episode once you have. Unless, of course, you don't care about spoilers, in which case, keep hanging out with us. We're glad to have you. If you are listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., feel free to skip ahead to the plug section using the time index in the show notes. You don't want to miss those. And if you're listening live, this is your chance. If you want to come back for plugs, please feel free to. Just step away for about 15 minutes, and then we'll be there when you come back. All right, spoilers for Hellraiser are officially fair game. Guys, where do you want to start?
We can talk about the human antagonist and sort of his link to kind of like what we classically see from Hellraiser stories, right? And I think that was the most compelling part of the kind of the non-Cenobite stuff. We have this guy, this very, very like rich dude named Voight, who is this. Well, he's also a seeker of sensation, and he's a masochist. He's a sadist. He's gone through everything that he can in life, and so he decides he wants to go through the configurations. So, and of course they've renamed the configurations in here to make them a little more, I don't know, a little more on the nose, which again makes it more accessible. I think that's fine. But we're led to believe early on that he something happened to him. He disappeared. Maybe he died after getting the last configuration. Maybe not. Now we found out that what he did was he asked for more sensation, and he just got so much pain that he's been in basically constant agony as these threads have been tied to every one of his nerves for the last 6 years. And he's like, I don't want this anymore. I want to go through the configurations again to make a new wish. Oh God, make it stop. Which I think
doesn't work that way.
I think that's incredibly compelling as an antagonist villain, like a human antagonist's thing. I think a lot of times when we see this type of character, we see the character who wants power for the sake of power. And I think that that's an interesting thing. This is a character who wants power for the sake of reversing his last want for power. And that's really fucking cool to explore. Again, I wish he had more interesting characters to bounce off of for that, but I really liked him. I liked kind of his arc of take it back, and then his final ascension to being a fight himself. I thought that was a neat way to go with that character, and I think you could do something more with that character in a future film. I think that's the hook more so than like Riley and her friends.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see if Roland Voight shows up again as a Cenobite, in a couple of years, if they put another one of these films out. It would be interesting to see, if the arc for him continues. Is he a sympathetic Cenobite? I don't know. Is he the most evil of them all? I don't know. I kind of want to follow his arc through the films, see him interact with the priest, and come to grips with his Cenobitehood. Cenobitehood. That's a new word.
They did destroy at least one of the Cenobites in this film, right? So this felt like a replacement. You know what I mean for that. And I wonder. So I'm not sure I understand. So the first time he had wished for, he did all the 6 configurations, or he got people to do it. And then they get killed, I assume. They don't become Cenobites, right? But he gets to wish for something. And the thing he wished for was sensation or feeling.
Yep.
Something like that, right? So they said, if you want to feel something, we'll fucking make you feel something. We're going to bury this accordion in the middle of your chest and then tweak the strings so you feel pain constantly. And so he decided, I'm not going to do that anymore. So I'll go through it again. So what? The rules aren't super clear. I know I only watched the one movie.
Yeah.
The rule isn't super clear as far as, okay, why did he did the second thing and he chose power, I guess.
Yes.
Or they gave him power. I'm not exactly sure. But then he becomes a Cenobite. He doesn't get to stay on Earth with some other power, thing like he did with the feeling. So I don't understand why the second time he ascended to Cenobite.
Well, you basically
some explanation of that.
Yeah, kind of. A little bit of it is like genie syndrome, where it's like, you make the wish, but you don't always get to control exactly what the wish is, I wish for $1 million and then I get crushed by like a crate filled with $1 million, like bad shit happens to those who wish, right? And in this case, within the lore of this, you found out that there were these 7 different configurations, right? And when whoever it is that touches first the puzzle box when it's gone through its 7th transformation, whoever touches that gets to then pick the power of one of the 7 configurations, and each one was something different between resurrection.
They all begin with L or something, right?
Yeah. So the actual words for them was like lament, Lazarus,
lore,
Leviathan. Yeah. So in this case, what he didn't want the sensation anymore, and so he got power. And I thought it was compelling that that's the way that he went, right? He could have gone that route originally, but he wanted something very specific. What's neat too is an actual Cenobite, like, and they express this in the film too. They're sort of like they're all humans who have explored the realm of sensation to the point of no longer being human, right? They have, they've gone through this themselves. They're now denizens of like a hell-like place where they get to enact their tortures on people, again, out of the expression of like the sadist part of the sadomasochism, right? Like that's what they want to inflict upon others. That's what has happened to all of Riley's friends, which is kind of shitty. They're not just like dead, they're like eternally tortured now. So that's interesting to me. But yeah, I mean, this is, if you really think about Voight's, what he really wants to do, he wants as much as to experience sensation as he wants to express sensation. He is a sadist as well. So him being like, like, yeah, this dude actually should be one of us, makes a lot of sense when you kind of see kind of the type of person that he is. Now, again, what type of person will he be as a Cenobite? That'd be a really compelling story if, like, maybe he takes things too far, makes a bid for power, goes against the configuration and just starts torturing people for the shit of it. Like, there's a lot of fun shit that could be done there. But that's sort of where all of his wish comes from, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess the movie was maybe inferring that there's some threshold that would be crossed, and then you become not just a person dealing with your wish, but a Cenobite. You know what I mean? So I don't. That's the part I'm not really getting, and maybe, who knows? Maybe the next movie will explain it a little bit better. I'll be honest. Brad had to tell me at the end of the movie. I'm like, who is that guy at the end that was on the thing and what was that all about? Like, with his skin peeling off and stuff. Because I didn't recognize it as Voight for some reason. I don't know why. Because his appearance was totally different.
He was bald. He was pale
bald
skinned
and painted a different color, and it was weird.
Yeah.
His dick was feeling off.
I was going to say we did get to see a dick, and it's not so Cenobite sized. Which
I can't imagine getting a hangnail like that on your dick. You know what I mean? Like,
he doesn't have a dick anymore. It's been removed.
Yeah,
goodbye, dick.
He gets his.
No, but yeah,
that's one of the weirdest books I read as a kid. Good night, Dick.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. So, like, if we saw another one of these, we've been talking around kind of like, like, oh, if we saw another one of these, we want to fill a void, we want to do something like that. Like, what would be an overall compelling part of, like, what, not necessarily what plot beats do you want to see, but like what overall themes would be most interesting for you to see to, like, continue the story in a way that would make you come back?
Heavy BDSM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I say that is because I feel like Roland's motivations were not super clear to me, like why he was doing this. Will, I think you make some really good connections with maybe what he might have been feeling with, like, exploring sensation and reaching the limits of what he can do. But, like, I don't know, it would have been interesting to me to actually see that character, like, come up against the frustration of, like, well, I just whipped somebody bloody and same old, I'm not getting anything out of it anymore.
Yeah.
We got a flash at the beginning of kind of, we go to, the movie opens, I think, in his mansion or whatever, right? And there's a scene off to the side, like through a door, and you can tell that there's some kind of orgy going on in that room. And I couldn't tell if there was maybe there was BDSM stuff happening in there, but it was really just a glimpse. I think it just kind of checked the box of, okay,
right,
here's our sexual BDSM stuff.
Right. Well, because the priest has a line the priest has a line about the blurred divide between like pain and pleasure, but we just didn't really see the pleasure part of that much. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So could have been stronger thematically.
I think about like, why should you remake a film, X number of years later? And I think there's two big reasons, right? One, you have something more to say, or two, you want to revitalize the franchise and hope that there's something to be said through the revitalization. When I think about like what a Hellraiser film could be in 2022, 2023, 2024, right now, I feel like the idea behind BDSM, kink has shifted a lot since the 80s, right? Not to say that there weren't like kink friendly spaces then, there absolutely were, but I think there was more of a mainstream view that like those things exist, like lurked in the shadows, right? And I think there's, especially like the generation right behind ours, is much more open in a lot of ways with some of their kinks, right? And you see like in ways that you didn't see before, kink at pride parades, things along those lines. So what I'm saying with all of that is we now have phrases like safe, sane, and consensual that I think like are known more in the mainstream than they probably even were in 87. So I think you could
Safe
do
word is
safe
another
word.
example.
Yeah. So I think you could do an interesting take, maybe the next one or whatever, where you follow maybe someone that is part of like an S&M scene, someone who is like a, 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 a dominatrix or something like that, who comes across all of this, and she has to like explore her own boundaries maybe, while also like dealing with these boundaries that are well beyond all of that. And again, not in like a weird preachy way. I think there's a way to do this in an awful way too, but I'm just describing could be done really fucking bad too, don't get me wrong. But I think that that's a good way to include the sexuality and include that is to sort of play into that, what is safe, sane, and consensual in a world where pleasure causes your skin to peel off.
I will say I put in an order on Etsy earlier for someone to create a puzzle box for me that doesn't stab you when you mess with it. It just twists your nipple off. So I think I'm going to add that to my playroom. That should be a good addition.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, Mr. Gray. Put it in your playroom.
Oh my God. Now I'm thinking about the playroom from those movies and just rolling my eyes so hard.
Ooh, do you see Ryan's question in chat?
Yeah, I was gonna wait on that till after Jim's thought, because it looked like Jim was burgeoning to say something.
Let me see. I was gonna say that this movie did represent at least a gay relationship.
Yep.
In the film. Unfortunately, one of those was the first one to die in the film. I'm like, oh, here we go. Introduce your gays and then kill your gays. But surprisingly, right, one of the guys in that relationship, right, one of the boyfriends, did survive to the end. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He was a final boy.
He was a final boy.
He was a final boy. So that definitely subverted my expectations. I expected kind of, okay, here we go. We're going to kill everybody off one by one. And there were a couple of twists in this movie that were pretty good, right? Her boyfriend, right? Boyfriend, fuck buddy, I don't know, whatever, was actually working in cahoots with Voight, right? That we found out toward the end. Is that correct? And we didn't know, and was kind of responsible for getting her in the whole bind in the first place. But so that was a twist I did not expect.
Her
definitely a good one.
Trevor the fuck boy.
Trevor the fuck boy. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's close off our conversation with this comment from Ryan that Will alluded to. Ryan, I love it. Ryan says, so now that Hellraiser is part of Disney, since Disney owns Hulu, is the new Pinhead a Disney princess? What do you guys think?
Could be. I don't know if that makes that character the Disney princess or the Riley character the Disney princess.
Oh.
I don't know.
I mean, I would much rather Jamie Clayton as the priest, as Pinhead, as the Disney princess. So yes, I agree. I think that's what that means. It is canon. I am, as an official Disney gay TM, I stamp it approved and as such. So look for your merch at the Disney shop near you now.
That would be funny to have a T-shirt of like all the Disney princesses and have Pinhead right there, like on the side.
I mean, you could also have the alien queen, the queen from the Alien franchise.
With everything now, yeah.
Disney. Yeah, about to say Disney owns everything.
Yeah, isn't that true?
Yeah.
I would say no. She's not a Disney princess. She's like the anti-princess. She's the antithesis.
She's the Ursula.
Of the Disney princess, right? So she is like the villainess of a movie. She's like the Maleficent or the Ursula. She's gonna get this big, huge, like breakout song where she gets to sing about the joys
Disney
of being evil.
You just solved it, Brad. Like, I think that's a very true statement in most of the cases, that the most interesting character in any Disney movie is usually the villain.
Yeah.
And I think that's also true of
that holds true.
Disney's Hellraiser. So
Disney's Hellraiser. I'm gonna put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. All right. Well, from our discussion, I think it's clear we all appreciated this movie on some level. It did some really cool things. It maybe had some opportunities. But I mean, this is a freshman franchise again, right? It's been rebooted. I don't know if we're going to get another movie. Hopefully we do. I would definitely watch that. But great talking about this film with you fellas. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We're going to go ahead and switch gears and move on to the plugs part of our show. And let's start with Will. Will, what have you got this week for your plug?
Oh my gosh. So we are right now in just an absolute, man, October is heating up right now. There's just like movie after movie coming out soon. One thing that I would recommend people start looking out for now, it doesn't come out for another 10 days, but now is a good time to start looking to see if it is playing near you. And if so, book a ticket for it. There is a movie called The Banshees of Inisherin, which is the new film starring, Brendan Gleeson, who recently appeared on Saturday Night Live. If anyone very recently was just like watching Saturday Night Live and going like, why the hell is Brendan Gleeson on here? Well, it's because he's got this new movie that's coming out. It also stars Colin Farrell, and it's written and directed by Martin McDonagh, who if you've watched In Bruges or Three Billboards, he directed both of those. So I think this is an absolutely stellar movie. Like, it's I think I mentioned last time that I saw some films recently and some of them might end up being in my top 10 of the year. The Banshees of Inisherin is one of them. I love Martin McDonagh's work. This is a story about these two guys who live in this super, super, super small remote island off of coast of Ireland. And they're the best of friends, but then just one day, one of them, the Brendan Gleeson character, decides, yeah, I don't want to be friends with you anymore, to the Colin Farrell character. And the Colin Farrell character goes to this crisis of like, what the fuck did I do? Why? This came out of nowhere. And it's really, it's I think the most interesting like breakup movie, even though it's, it's not a queer romance movie, but it's the most interesting breakup movie that I've seen in a long time. It's the Banshees of Inisherin. It's coming out on the 21st. I saw Searchlight's been like throwing trailers out on social media, and some places have started releasing tickets for advanced sales for it. So start looking ahead, see this movie. It's really damn good.
All right, Will. Awesome.
I had seen the trailer for it, and I love Brendan Gleeson, and Colin Farrell's doing some great stuff right now. It's a different tone for sure, but the setting reminded me of like movies like was it Calvary?
Calvary.
Yeah.
while it's I mean that the obvious comparison is of course Brendan Gleeson, right? But
Yeah.
if you liked Calvary, I think you'll like this too, because it shares sort of a similar like small rustic dark
Seaside town,
comedic, but not like a comedy type movie.
right?
Like
Dark,
there's
really dark.
yeah, they definitely share a lot of DNA.
Cool.
And
It's
I like
always
that
fun.
movie.
It's always fun to share DNA. So
sharing DNA with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, huh?
I'd share DNA with Brendan Gleeson. I'm just saying.
Sure.
All right. Well, Will, thank you so much for your plug. Appreciate that. Jim, did you have anything you wanted to plug this week?
I don't really. I will talk. I will mention that Halloween Ends, I think, comes out soon, and we'll probably be talking about it on the show. Is this the last Jamie Curtis Halloween movie? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it is. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is kind of end of an era. A lot of people going to be excited for this one. I know I am. I'm a huge fan of the original Halloween, not so much of and this last one, Halloween Kills, was pretty good. But I'm kind of hoping this one hits it out of the park. You know me, I'm a movie optimist. So yeah, Halloween Ends is coming out. So check for that in theaters.
Rock on. It is spooky season. So now, well, at least relative to when we're recording, I don't know if it's spooky season, listeners, when you're necessarily listening to this episode. But yeah, great opportunity to go out and see this film, especially before we talk about it on the show. We reviewed the last couple of those films on the show, so it makes sense to close out that chapter with a discussion of the third. So Jim, thanks so much for calling that one out so people can see that and get ready for our conversation.
And it'll be nice and accessible too, because not only is it doing a theatrical holy shit this Friday, but it's also, if you happen to have Peacock, I think it's also premiering on Peacock too. So granted, it's an extra streaming platform you have to have, but for people that are wanting good movies but are still worried about like certain things about the theater, whether it be cost or COVID or what have you, you have options.
I know a lot of people are going to be clamoring to watch that for sure.
Indeed. All right, I will close this out with a plug for myself. Jim, it's really distracting to look at your video and see cat ears poking up out of the bottom.
Yeah, you know what? He is looking directly at the images of you guys on my screen right now. He's affixed. Watch. He's like, "What are you?" Now he's got his paw up on your paw.
Oh, Jordy, our little man. All right, so let me close things out with my plug. I've got two things I was potentially going to plug, but while we're talking about Peacock, I'll talk about the one that's on Peacock. I have been going back because of the new Quantum Leap reboot that just came out about a month ago. It just had its 4th episode. The new show, it's a continuation of the original. It's picking up some things that the original kind of left behind. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it's just picking up threads and continuing with them in some cool ways. But it's very much a show that's finding its footing right now. It's brand new. I don't think it has a large audience, although NBC just ordered 8 more episodes of it. So hopefully that's a good sign for the show. But my official plug is the original Quantum Leap, which is available on Peacock. That's the streaming service from NBC. You can access the original show. I started at the beginning a couple of weeks ago, and I'm already like midway through season 2. And damn, I forgot what a great actor Scott Bakula really is. I know he's been in some things like Star Trek Enterprise, which, I hated that show. But watching Scott Bakula basically carry a show on his back like the original Quantum Leap. I mean, it's mostly just him leaping from person to person, putting right what went wrong, with the help of Al, a hologram from the future. But I think it's great that NBC, even though, yes, Peacock is an additional streaming service, I think it's great that NBC is putting so much of their back catalog onto that streaming platform. There's a ton of great shows there, including Quantum Leap, which if you've never seen it before, check it out. It's a great show. Check out the new one, while you're at it. You might get spoiled a little bit. But I mean, Peacock is a streaming service, kind of one of the weaker streaming services, maybe compared to some of the others, but it does have some gems on there. So check out either iteration of Quantum Leap, but because it is a continuation, maybe do yourself a service and watch the first one first.
Whoa! Oh! Where am I? What? Brad, right? Don't finish this episode. If you do, the world will end.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for this week. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in. We had a bunch of people in here live. We read some of the comments from Ryan. I think a lot of people were kind of hanging out and wanted to hear some initial thoughts about Hellraiser. And notice when we made that jump to spoilers, pretty much most people jumped off. So I think a lot of people were maybe sitting on Hellraiser. Maybe we helped them make a decision. I don't know. But we will be coming at you again with our review of Halloween Ends. Will, you're off next week, right? Is that what we said? You're still here next week. Okay, great. So we will be back with you next week for Halloween Ends. Make sure to see that over the weekend and catch up with us next week. We'll see you all later. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.